Yeesh. I don't know if I should be happy about being right about something or unhappy about it. See, I wanted to talk about one thing to start a conversation and made a few side points along the way. The funny thing was, those that understood my initial point of view support the core argument I was attempting to make. Meanwhile, in my last video, one of the points I was driving home, or at least attempting to, was about patience. The core point of the video was about quantity. I was trying to understand the attitude that even though the game had a slew of things to do and places to go, there's a pocket of the population believing the content was thin. That was the core argument. And a ton of people from that tribe of players literally skipped over that to come at me with quality. So I was all like, patience, my good sirs. That's a different conversation. And I did promise several commenters I was indeed working on covering this topic. They just had to wait 48 hours. That still didn't seem to fend off that player tribe, though. But here we are, at last. When people say Battlefield 6 has a quality problem, I'm not sure exactly what they mean. Hang on. Slow your roll. Let me explain. First, we need to establish just what the hell is meant by quality. See, in my comment section under quantity, there seems to be three camps. We have the maps are bad camp. They usually just say maps are bad and offer nothing in depth or provide details or examples to back up the claim. Kids, I can't take this poor attempt at an argument seriously. I call these drive-by comments. They lack teeth and substance. It's more of an opinion than a fact. What's bad for you may not be bad for someone else. See, here we are again at the word perspective. If you come to my channel, you're going to hear that word a lot. Either get used to it, kiddos, or slither your way back into your echo chambers with the rest of the slime. Anyway, this camp isn't about making an argument. My commenters have better objectives, so I'll leave it to those who aren't under any type of platform constraints to add them to the comments. The second camp are the ones that have grocery lists of what is defined as quality. They often make 5 different arguments under one lazy label and then call it lazy devs. And they lump all their grievances into one ball of wire that they end up talking past others, talking past me, and most importantly, talking past the actual fixes or tweaks. This is the group that oftentimes complains about map design, map size, and scheduled releases.
Size, color, frequency, I'll call you later!
And no amount of reasoning can be had with them. It's all or nothing. The third and final group are the nostalgia complainers. Look, guys, I really do see your point. I do. Believe me, I do. But some of you have got to calm down, or else you're going to blow a gasket. Remember, we're not as young as we used to be. These are the guys that want Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 fuckery and shenanigans with the visuals of Battlefield 1. Like I said, I do get it. I would love for Battlefield 6 to be exactly that. Trust me. But the demand for it is seriously unreasonable. Look, I'm not trying to alienate my fan base that I do have, but come on. To sit there and demand EA or DICE to just give a fully launched game a new paint job 117 days into its life? You're talking about comfort here. You're talking about recognition. You're talking about whether the game feels like the version of a Battlefield you played and already made peace with 10 years ago. And none of that is the same thing. Because if we're being honest, and we are, whether people like it or not, quality has become the most abused word in this entire community. It's not a standard anymore. It's a vibe check with a memory attached to it, or it's a drive-by comment without explanation, like it's the gospel according to FPS God 99. Side note, I made that name up, by the way. Sorry if it does exist and he or she finds it here and states that they never said that shit. Or it's a biblical list of 10 demandments. A lot of the time, if you actually ask people what they consider to be low quality in Battlefield 6, something interesting happens. They don't give you systems. They don't give you mechanics. They don't give you failure cases. They give you comparisons. Does it feel like Battlefield 3? Does it look like Battlefield 1? Plays worse than I remember Battlefield 4. Doesn't have the magic. That's not a quality critique, ladies and gentlemen. That's relative nostalgia. Because quality, real quality, is measurable. So let's talk about what Battlefield 6 is actually doing at a system level. Quality is not whether you personally like the lighting, whether the color grading hits your dopamine, whether the UI reminds you of Hulu. And honestly, guys, that's the dumbest argument I've heard so far about quality. Man, I have zero problems navigating on Hulu and still have zero problems navigating through Battlefield 6. I really don't understand what your problem is with this shit. Or whether or not your favorite YouTuber is still playing the game. Quality is input response, mechanical depth, system interaction, player agency inside the platform's constraints, failure states that make sense, consistency of rules. So take off your cheap sunglasses and put these on. And let's look at Battlefield under that lens. So when people say that the maps are bad, let's stop pretending they're talking about systems, because they're not. Are the current maps a quarter of the size they were in previous titles? As one commenter said? Well, some players argue that maps are smaller due to high density and close quarter action rather than just physical size. However, it was noted that some smaller maps were used for testing, and that the intention was for larger, more traditional Battlefield scale maps to be included after its release, despite these complaints. We are getting Gulmud, Railway, and Contaminated looks to be a pretty decent sized map. But let's take a look at what's current anyway. Okay, so what you're seeing here is a comparative map footprint visualization across multiple Battlefield titles, and it's showing playable combat space, not visual dressing or background terrain. Fuck that, we're not talking about that right now. So we have Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4, Battlefield Hardline, Battlefield 1, 2042, and Battlefield 6. Each blobby section represents effective combat area per map and mode, from Conquest to with 128 players, Conquest with 64 players, so on and so forth. It does indeed show that Battlefield 6 maps are smaller in effective play space. Try saying that 5 times real fast. And that's not an opinion. It's visually obvious, as you can see here. The Battlefield 6 blobby things? Well, they're more compact, more irregular, more segmented, and more clustered around the objectives. Now, compared to Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, which had large, open, continuous play spaces, and Battlefield 1 had fewer maps, but still broad and readable combat zones. Now, this directly supports the compression argument, but not bad maps argument. Battlefield 6 has less dead space, intentionally. Older Battlefield maps had large traversal buffers, empty or lightly contested areas, and long approach vectors. In other words, you were walking. Battlefield 6 trimmed the fat, guys. The result? It was a faster contact, less downtime, and more constant engagement. So you get an upside here, higher intensity and less walking simulator. The downside? Less breathing room, fewer long flanks, and less room to disengage. This is design philosophy, not incompetence or the devs being lazy. They did this shit on purpose, folks. Why don't you understand this? But Hannibal 2042 had these large maps. My dudes, 2042 is the outlier here, and not in a good way. Notice how Battlefield 2042's blobby things are massive, have huge dead zones, are spread far apart. That experiment caused long travel times, vehicle dominance, and a lot of you sad sacks already bitch about the vehicles, infantry frustration, and low match density. In other words, you had to go find your targets. And you took a long, sweet-ass time finding them. Battlefield 6 is a direct corrective response to that failure that you same motherfuckers bitched about in 2042. Like, make up your goddamn minds, people. That's important context you wanna-be game critics ignore. It's too much like Call of Duty. Too much CQB. Too many angles to die from. You're reacting to density, not speed, and not bad map design. Even if the TTK and movement are Battlefield typical and not Call of Duty inspired, compressed space creates CQB outcomes whether you want them to or not. This is why big map players feel suffocated and exchanges escalate faster. Again, design trade-off, not failure or lazy devs. Battlefield 6 does not have smaller maps because of laziness or a lack of content. It has smaller, effective combat spaces because DICE intentionally reduced dead space after Battlefield 2042's feedback from players. The smaller maps are literally all your fault. Unequivocally all your fault. You gave EA feedback, bitching about too much space, then turn around with the next title and bitch about not enough space? Man, make up your fucking minds, people. What the fuck is wrong with you? That image does not support the idea that DICE doesn't know how to design maps. This Battlefield prioritizes density over sprawl. And that choice has consequences, folks. Battlefield 2042 was an experiment, and it failed epically. Battlefield 6 is a correction, not a downgrade. You Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4 vets, this explains that boxed-in feeling you talk about. Smaller doesn't mean worse, but it does mean different skills are rewarded. We're talking about what collides minute to minute, such as what we see, where we move, how cramped it feels, whether the map helps or punishes them for trying to play Battlefield the way we want to. Now, that's not a sandbox debate. That's a map experience debate. So, let's talk about what map quality actually breaks down into, because it's not one thing. There's usually 5 map quality complaints. We have size and breathing room. One of the loudest complaints is pretty simple. These maps feel small. That's not subjective. But what EA DICE were trying to accomplish here with smaller maps was increasing the contact frequency and reduce the maneuver time. What happened turned out to be punishments for repositioning and flanking turning into sprinting through large open kill zones. And for players who want traditional Battlefield scale, this all feels like Call of Duty pacing creeping in, even if the match or players aren't even actually playing like Call of Duty. This is where the big map all the time crowd lives. These guys don't hate action, it's the compression that's not jamming with them. And when you add 63 other players into the mix with compression, all you get is congestion, a shitty KD, and a shitty time playing. Now, this is an important distinction here, folks. This is not about skill. This is about how much space the map gives you to think. Then there's flow, funnels, and forced routes and rerouting. This is where the lazy devs camp starts screaming. A lot of Battlefield 6 maps have 2 to 3 dominant paths between objectives, which oftentimes forces movement through exposed areas, and that turns traversal time into a tax instead of a choice. When players say maps are funneled, or there's no way around, or every push feels the same, they're reacting to route scarcity, not dying. Now, here's the hard truth. Some of these funnels are real design constraints, and some of them are players refusing to adapt. Now, before you come at me, I can explain that last part. New Sobek City. I initially hated this map for the whole funnel reason when I first played it. It was even universally agreed by almost everyone that it was crowned most hated map. But I personally played it over and over again because I wasn't going to let a digital map dictate what I played, when I played, and how I played. So I adapted. Now I think the map's alright and simply don't mind playing it. But a lot of players feel that when that map repeatedly funnels you into the same meat grinder, people stop calling it a challenge and start calling it a bad design. Let's see. Yes. Power positions and asymmetric advantages. Look, the map I hate the most based off design is Blackwell Fields. It annoys me greatly that some random player can just sit at that crest with a tank and just camp there, sniping at anything that moves. You know where I'm talking about. For me, that crest isn't a preference issue. It's a power imbalance issue. Some maps, especially Blackwell Fields, lack secondary combat layers. Fewer fallback positions and dominant power positions control too much of the remaining space left on the map. And reduced space amplifies asymmetric mistakes, just like it does in Blackwell Fields. When a map is smaller, mistakes hurt more, fellas. That's not bad design, that's just math. A true map design flaw looks like one team establishing a long-term dominant position, and that position has limited counterplay. Removing it requires disproportionate effort or luck, and the match tempo wraps around it. That's not adaptation failure, that's a map teaching bad behavior. Players farming from safety for an entire match is not Battlefield magic. It's a static gameplay at best and scrubs taking advantage at worst. Look, I'm all for janking the system, but Jesus H. Christ, get the fuck out of that tank. You ain't shit without it. My opinion on Blackwell Fields' design is one of the strongest quality critiques I can concede. If the map was a bit wider, this may not be such an issue for me. Most of the time, I rarely play the map unless it's rush or breakthrough. You'll rarely see me on it in Conquest. This is the one map I have had a hard time adapting to. I admit that. And I tried it the same way I did Sobek City. Right now, for me, the effort wasn't as worth it in Blackwell Fields. Oh look, visual identity and color palette. Ugh. This is the one a lot of people try to dismiss and they shouldn't. Battlefield 1 was visually striking. Period. No lies detected. I gave everyone who says this a nod of approval. Battlefield 6, by comparison, well, it leans heavily into muted browns and grays, that ugly-ass millennial gray. It's fucking awful. It reuses these environmental tones across multiple maps. Siege of Cairo, brown on brown. New Sobek City, brown with a blue truck cameo. Woohoo! Operation Firestorm, visually washed compared to its older versions. Liberation Peak, it's impressive at a distance. Repetitive in play and fucking narrow as fuck. The question I have is this about graphics horsepower or about readability and identity? When maps don't visually distinguish themselves, players feel like they're playing the same place over and over, even when layouts differ from one another. That perception feels and feeds the low-quality narrative really fast. That's only about how the colors look, not whether or not the map doesn't work. And my favorite, destruction and Levolution expectations. This is where nostalgia does enter, but not dishonestly. Some players expected Battlefield 3, Battlefield 4 style destruction. Dynamic mid-match transformations. The battlefield itself changing outcomes. And Battlefield 6 pulled back on that. Hard. And this specifically disappoints me. But some of that pullback was intentional because we had players complaining about those forced resets. They said that the matches felt hijacked by spectacle and not by game mechanics. Again, it's the player base's fault based on feedback. I cannot stress this enough. I don't understand where you guys get this magic idea that the devs are just pulling shit out of their ass willy-nilly when it comes to map design or removing a mechanic or adding a mechanic. It's all based on feedback by players who test and surveys. I mean, shit, man. If you really wanted to get into it, find a way to get into Battlefield Labs. And then play what they're talking about and then provide fucking feedback. Personally, I loved Levolution. Others just didn't. So what's the quality complaint really saying here? Not bringing back Shanghai's skyscraper collapse, or these maps don't evolve enough during a match, which ends up being control points feeling static and matches blurring together faster and faster and faster. And those are valid critiques without demanding gimmicks or screaming, kiddos. Here's where the community tends to screw this up with the complaints. They compress all 5 of these into the maps are bad. And because it's vague, it turns into kill count frustration, aesthetic nitpicking, nostalgic arguments, optimization rage, or flat-out dismissal. But remember, kids, map quality concerns do not negate map quantity math. They exist on different timelines. You're 117 or so days post-launch.
Oh.
People are demanding end-of-life Battlefield 4 variety, Battlefield 1 visual polish, Battlefield 3 scale, Battlefield 4 destruction, and modern live service cadence, all at once. No Battlefield has ever delivered that in its first 4 months. Not one. Quality isn't Battlefield 1 visuals stapled onto a Battlefield 3 map with Battlefield 4 destruction. That's a wish list. Quality is whether the map produces fair, readable, replayable engagements and whether players can actually learn it without feeling processed. And live service doesn't mature without participation, ladies and gentlemen. So you gotta ask yourself, are you mad about map size, design, or bad vibes, or are you mad about all 3? I mean, you should be playing the game and treating every map like it owes you some playlist or play style. Are you a one-trick pony or something? Demand fixes where they are real asymmetries, my dude. And stop pretending early cycle maps should feel like year 5 Battlefield 4. Quality criticism only works if it's specific. Remember, Battlefield 3 at launch had miserable netcode too. It had suppression complaints for months. It also had balance passes that took years to reconcile. Battlefield 4 shipped borderline broken. Stayed broken long enough to require litigation. and only became peak Battlefield after prolonged engagement. Battlefield 1 was indeed praised for presentation, but took months to stabilize its sandbox. And it had entire weapon classes sidelined for full cycles. And all those titles doled out content at a snail's pace. And yet, these games get remembered as high quality. Not because they launched perfectly, they didn't. But because people stayed, stuck around, and played. The difference isn't Battlefield 6, it's how players decide when quality is allowed to exist. Back then, this is rough, but I see what they're building. Now, if it's not perfect, it's dead. That's not higher standards, kids. That's shorter patience. Here's the part people don't want to hear. Quality in live games emerges. It does not arrive fully formed. And it only emerges if players stress systems, meta evolves, developers respond, iteration happens. When players bail early, the system never stabilizes, folks. Then those same players point at the instability as proof that the game was bad. That's not criticism. That's the self-fulfilling abandonment bullshit I mentioned on Monday. Hell, Portal is the cleanest experiment Battlefield has ever run. The community asked for old rules and old pacing and old chaos. Then they got it in Portal. And then they didn't play it. Why? Not because it wasn't fun, not because it wasn't Battlefield, because XP wasn't optimal. Progression wasn't fast enough. Numbers didn't go up efficiently. And this exposes your bare ass more than anything you could try to do to cover it up with. This was never about quality. It was about reward velocity. Modern players don't ask, was this fun? They ask, was this worth my time numerically? That mindset destroys sandbox games. Because Battlefield's value is in emergent chaos, not predictable returns. You cannot spreadsheet fun, motherfuckers. Most of the people invoking high-quality Battlefield are comparing a remembered end-state game to a current early cycle game. That's it. This is not an honest comparison. Hell, it's not even a fair one. That's comparing a finished painting to a sketch and declaring art is dead. The growing game is literally right in front of you to have at and have fun. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, there's fun to be had. But I guess that doesn't count anymore, apparently. I admit, Battlefield 6 looks bland in color. I'm not a fan of one section of one map. I would rather 3 or 4 maps be a bit wider. I don't like how they repainted Operation Firestorm. But to not play a game because of a preference is in little tweaks? Nah, that makes zero sense to me. Why? Because I found other maps I liked. I found weapons on classes I rock and roll with. And I found a ton of players here in YouTube land that doesn't approach the game with pitchforks and torches because of a pixel or an alleyway or a scope glint. Battlefield 6 does not have a quality crisis, folks. It has a permission crisis from whiny kids who have no idea how good they have it with a new game that hasn't had a chance to stretch its legs yet. And feel free to call me a shill or telling me that EA won't pay me. Honestly, if that's the best you got, it's no wonder a little brand new game in its infancy kicked your ass so bad you had to leave because sticking around to be part of its growth was just too much for your fragile ego. Too many players are waiting for consensus, validation, a YouTube thumbnail, a tweet saying it's safe now. And all the while they wait, the game starves. Quality doesn't die because systems fail, kids. It dies because participation stops. Battlefield doesn't need blind loyalty either, though. It needs engagement long enough for refinement. If you don't like the game, fine. You said you paid $70 for this game. And when you see me having fun talking about the good things in it, you tell me your $70 is worth $700 in quality. Man, get the fuck out of here with that infantile bullshit. Tell you what, if you feel like dropping $70 on a game, and one of those multiple voices in your head whispers that quality might be an issue, so you shouldn't buy the game, but the money is burning a hole in your pocket, send that useless money to me. I can find so much to do and buy with it. You're obviously unhappy with your money, your time, and games. Might as well put that cash to good use. And for the love of all that is good and holy and just in the universe, stop calling something slightly displeasing as low quality. Stop calling Impatience standards. And stop pretending remembered perfection was ever real. Battlefield 6 is flawed. So was every Battlefield worth remembering. The difference is we used to play through the flaws. Now, you motherfuckers quit and write essays about why that makes you discerning. Quality isn't missing. You just don't know what it means. Quality means the standard of something as measured against other things of a similar kind, the degree of excellence of something. When you talk about quality of maps here in this game, what degree of excellence are you really measuring against? Is it the map size? The map design? If it's size, then we all need to be on the same page with feedback to the devs and agree on what's considered big enough. If it's design, then we all need, again, to be on the same page with what design means for a game and us. Stating it's brain dead because the maps are not as big as Battlefield 1 is subjective at best. In feedback to the devs, you need to be objective. Saying the biggest problem for you is that the maps cater to Call of Duty players, that could be subjective and objective at the same time. If you want Battlefield players only, I mean, that is a bit segregationist of you, but whatevs, then you need to send feedback on exactly what you want in Battlefield maps. I personally don't have a problem with Call of Duty players in Battlefield 6, as long as they adhere to Battlefield rules. I mean, don't be coming in here while I'm playing giving me shit about my playstyle. You sound like a scrub when you do that. The fact that a lot of players are level 250 plus and have 700 hours in the game and still claiming they're boycotting or hating the game, especially because of the whole quality thing, is the most modern age victim thing I can think of. They're literally the biggest consumers of the product they claim is killing the franchise. Like, what? I like to believe I'm fair. I believe the game needs improvement. But Jesus, it's not a bad game. Like, where did you get your standards from? No, really, who taught you that not meeting some wild-ass expectation means bad quality? The way I see it is, you can play while all of us wait for the content to drop, or get the fuck out and never darken our door again. You're selling, we ain't buying. No coin for your wares. Nope. Out.